Hey everybody, I'm back for another update on my Duke 890R and the ownership and fun I'm having with it. Zoomed in on the one of the first parts I ordered and one of the ones that took the longest to come in, the official KTM orange anodized rear brake reservoir cover. I think I ordered it about a year ago and it just came in now, so I don't know if it's the popularity of these bikes or orange anodizing at the KTM factory, but it finally came in a year later, and of course it fits like a glove. So it's the pièce de résistance, as we know in French, means piece of resistance. Sorry to all my French friends, that was a terrible joke. Anyway, fits nice and adds a little bit of orange bling to it. Some major updates that I've done to the bike, if you've been watching along, is that when I first bought it, I was so excited on getting the machine. I kind of, traded in my restored RC8, which was a fun winter project, rode it for a few, maybe about 1,000 kilometers, and realized it's totally unsuited to the type of roads that I have in my province. So these came into the shop, traded it in, got a pretty good deal on it, and I just bought it. I didn't try to. I got a good deal on the trade, so I didn't want to push my luck. And I've heard about or read about guys that have sort of negotiated upgrades to their bikes when they purchased them off the dealer. And I think this was, I'd say this could be one of the first 2022 sold in Manitoba, certainly the only one in my city. And so, yeah, I just bought it as is. So it didn't come with any of the upgrades that some people have been able to negotiate. So what I'm focusing in on is the left-hand switchgear, which looks like a normal left-hand switchgear except for this. So this here is the cruise control feature. And I've only used it maybe for 5 or 6 rides, but it's phenomenal. I was joking with a buddy of mine, the best way to appreciate modern bikes is to only ride old bikes, because I think BMW had a cruise control in place probably 10 or 15 years ago. Other bikes, it's certainly not a brand new feature, but this is my first bike with cruise control, and having a damaged wrist from a racing accident always, made long distance cruising a bit painful. And led to some fatigue. And with this thing, it's absolutely fantastic. So you click it over here to turn it on, click it again to turn it off, and it shuts off quite abruptly, which is a good thing, because I've tried it. As soon as you just caress the brake, either front or rear, it shuts off immediately. So you set it like that. You can reduce the speed. You can restore the speed, that sort of thing, and a little light comes on in the dash. So that's part of the cruise control package. So there's the electronic upgrade for X number of dollars, and then the hard parts that need to be wired in. And this did take some time to do, and it was sort of surprising when I was given the quote by the dealer, and I got a good deal on the cost. Like, they gave me some pretty heavy discounts simply because I'm kind of regular customer and repping the brand at the track and that sort of thing. There was labor, because you have to take off the front clip and hook things in. But anyway, that plus some keystrokes on the KTM laptop, and it's up and running. But the other thing I got was I also got the tech pack, which includes the track pack. So you can see that it has the usual rider modes here. Still figuring out how to do it. See here, nope, there we go, ride mode. So now I have track as an option. So throttle response, track, sport, speed, street, anti-wheelie is on because I can't wheelie to save my life. Launch control I've left off, and so once it's set to track, notice I had it at slip 3, and that's a progression that I made as I was working at the track this past weekend. So I'm going to take it off track mode here and put it back on street mode, because I'm on the street for now. Yeah, it started off, well, I guess part of it too is the up and down quick shifter. And when I first bought the bike and guys were getting the quick shifter put on, they were talking about how it wouldn't work too well, and there were some difficulties. And some guys still had it in normal shift. Some guys had it in GP shift and said it was better. So what I did is that my bike has always been in GP shift because that's what I've been used to. And the one thing that they said the bike was very sensitive towards is chain tension. So I do like to run my bikes with slacker than usual chains. I just, you know, from what I've read back in the day with old suspension geometry, it prevents the chain from locking out the suspension. Anyway, I run it a bit loose, and the quick shifter has been absolutely faultless, both up and down. And again, I've had some race bikes with aftermarket quick shifters that I've added. I've never had much luck with dyno jets. I had I can't remember what kind on a Ninja 650 racer, and it worked well, but this is just absolutely bulletproof. And I'll get to the track riding a bit more later, but when I went out to the track this past weekend, I thought, okay, well, you know, I'll have to get used to not using the clutch on downshifts. You know, I'll take it easy for this first session, yada, yada, yada. Like by about the second or third lap, I was banging it up and down the box without a clutch. Again, it just works phenomenally. So I do use the clutch on up and down shifts on the street. Every once in a while, I'll kick it up a gear, you know, if I'm on it, you know, when it's safe, of course, and always maintaining the speed limit. But it's worked fantastically. So so the up and down quick shifter is amazing. The other thing is the motorcycle traction controller, the MTC. Again, having not had the benefit of riding modern bikes, my next newest bike from this one was actually another KTM, a 2013 Duke 690. I was speechless. So I first time I had 6 sessions on Saturday. First session I went out. I hadn't been out to the track in quite a while. Wanted to acclimate myself. Left it in sport mode. Used the quick shifter. Okay, so second session, going to use the track mode, and then I'm going to leave it MTC on 9. And you know, the funny thing is, as hairy as this bike is, I would say that a Duke 890 with traction control set to 9 is probably the safest motorcycle out there, because I had it leaned over exiting, you know, the turns, turn 1, turn 3, turn 5, and it got to the point where I held the throttle wide open as I'm leaned over, and it wouldn't give me anything until I, you know, brought the bike more upright, and then it would kick in. So, you know, it's just phenomenal how well these things work. I'm sure the first generation traction control were rudimentary. It's absolutely seamless. There's no stuttering. I remember back in the day I was at MotoGP in Laguna Seca back in 2006, I think, and you'd hear the bikes exiting the turn and the traction control would kick in, and it would like that. It just does nothing until the bike is upright. So session 1 was, or session 2, the first time with track mode at 9, then to 6, and then I left it at 3. I think, you know, the next time I go out, I could probably knock it down to 2, or I think, you know, the guy racing this bike in Moto America, Andy DeBrino, as well as some other guys, they shut it off or they leave it at 1. So make haste slowly. Getting to the track section again, you know, I just used the KTM's track settings. Bike handled great. Most of Canada, according to the dealer, is out of Power Cup 2s. I was sort of warned about this, that they were getting hard to find and quite expensive, so I found these Q4s from Fortnine. Sorry for those of you who own bike shops, but you know, you can't beat their price. These are 2021s, I think, build date, so I kept them inside over the winter. And I actually found I liked these even better than the Michelins. As you can see, the wear pattern is a bit better. Now the track itself, we were probably running at 26, 27 degrees track temperature. I wasn't using tire warmers, half a lap to warm up, and you know, there's no tearing, just that nice little tire surface that you want to see. on a track day tire. So you know, obviously using it right to the edge. These sipes are getting a bit shallow here, and it's mainly a left-hand track, so the right hand is looking a bit better. But anyway, like these tires were great, and I think most modern tires are anyway, as long as they're a sporty tire. We know how terrible these things are in the wet. That's why I've got street tires on wheels over there, and I've left these on because circumstances are such I'm probably not going to be able to ride this much before the next track day. So rather than flipping the tires over for a few hundred kilometers, I'm just going to leave these on here, so I'm ready to go for the August track day in the middle of the month. So Q4s are phenomenal on this bike. I think there's not too many of them left around in stock. So Q5s might be my next step, or I might try something else like Metzlers or Avons, or maybe even a track day slick that doesn't require tire warmers. But yeah, these are amazing tires. So what I found with this bike, this last round, I was going a bit harder. Still didn't bother with a transponder to get lap times, or I still don't have an onboard lap timer, but I'm seriously considering looking at like renting a transponder or buying, you know, a cheap GPS lap timer just to get a sense of what my lap times are, because I feel I'm going faster, and certainly passed way less than I was the first round. Less guys out, but the whole idea of 600 blowing by me and that sort of thing, it just isn't happening anymore. I think I'm working on my exits from certain corners, especially the last corner in the track that leads onto the front straight. But yeah, it was I felt really good during the track day. Yeah, fronts worked great. What I am going to do though, and what I noticed, and certainly I always chuckle, you know, for the longest time I raced and sometimes I had steering dampers, sometimes I didn't, but the bikes that I was riding were never that powerful, so I didn't get into these crazy tank slappers. Well, I am now, and again, my local track is notoriously bumpy, especially coming out of turn 5, and there was a couple of times where I got some pretty good slaps back and forth, and it's very disconcerting, especially when you're not a pro rider and this is also your street bike. So one of them was bad enough that I thought I should pump the brakes before the next corner, and sure enough, the pistons I think had moved back again because there was a whole lot of lever travel. So you know, that preys on your mind, and we've all heard how terrible this stock steering damper is, and some guys have put heavier weight oil in it, but most anyone who's serious about riding these things fast has replaced the steering damper outright. So steering dampers are obscenely expensive depending on what you buy and how much you want to spend, and yeah, there's cheap Chinese copies, but I'm not going to bother with that. So I'm getting a new steering damper actually out of the UK, Brooks Suspension. When I factored in their cost, the exchange, shipping, perlators cut, you know, to import it for me, it was still cheaper than buying it out of the States, and certainly there's nothing in stock in Canada anyway, so it should be a fairly simple swap over. Should come in before the next track day, and I'm definitely going to switch it over. I decided to get a Hyper Pro one, simply because the Matrix ones were more expensive. Hyper Pro has two models, a RSC and an SCS, I think. RSC has sort of like a gradiated or gradual function that if you turn the bars quickly, it uses more damping than if you turn it slowly. So I guess pushing it around the pits, it feels one way, but when you're out on the track, it feels differently. I got the other one. It was about $50 cheaper. You know, again, I doubt, you know, unless you're a pro rider, you're really going to tell the difference. So I'll be happy to fit that, because it was quite scary at times, the tank slapper as I was getting out. So it was almost like as I was exiting this turn, you almost find a path of least bumpiness. So that's what I was doing. And what I found too is that there was a couple of times where exiting turn 9, I guess the last turn in the track, the bumps are actually so bad that I was my back, both front and back wheels were coming off the ground. And again, I wasn't not like jumping at Cadwell Park, but it would monkey with the traction control temporarily. So it is what it is. It's a bumpy track, and you know, when you do get the benefit of riding on a smooth track, it is pretty nice. So it was just kind of funny to have that act a certain way, simply because of the bumpiness of the track. So the last thing that looks like I'll be changing is that a few guys were saying when they first bought the bike how terrible this chain was, and you know, again, to me a chain is a chain, but this is the stock chain, and they were talking about the chain squeaking. It's like, how could a properly lubricated chain squeak? Well, sure enough, as you can see, I keep my chain properly lubricated and fairly clean, and it started to squeak on me. So between that and I want to try a larger rear sprocket, I'm going to go up 2 teeth. I thought, well, I can't do that with the chain I have, and it's a known liability. So I've ordered a new chain and a new rear sprocket. So when I switch it over, I'll have 2 teeth taller in the back, and it should help with better acceleration, because there was a couple of times where you know, I had the makings of you know, passing some you know, 600s, some properly prepped track bikes, but again, corner exit, they were a bit quicker, and I don't think it had anything to do with aerodynamics because they're running full fairings, but you know, Gimli's a short, tight track, so most people put these big pie plate rear sprockets on and go with that, and it helps with the acceleration. So I think I'll do the same thing. It's equivalent to going 1 tooth lower in the front, but the nice thing is this comes with a 520 chain and sprockets. So I just got a Vortex 520 43 that I found on eBay for a good price, because there's only so many bikes who want an orange rear sprocket, and got a EK chain, I think 520 chain. I've had lots of EK chains before. They're good quality stuff, plus a Rivet Master Link, and I'll put that on. And depending on when I am done my other commitments that are going to take me away for a bit, I might have enough time to do the chain and sprocket and steering damper before the next track day. It's going to be a bit tight. If not, I'll just do the steering damper, leave the chain alone, and do all that for next year. So yeah, that's the update. I guess overall, you might have seen the odometer was at 7,900 kilometers for a bike that's a year and about a month and a bit old. And I didn't do any riding in May because I was again tied up with some other commitments. That's probably the most mileage I've put on a bike in 25 or 26 years of riding. And I've had faster bikes, I've had sportier bikes, I've had I guess bikes that are easier to ride. I don't think I've ever had a more comfortable bike. I don't think I've ever had a more enjoyable bike. I don't think I've ever had a cooler bike than this, and I think that's reflected in the mileage. And you know, someone made a good point on one of the forums, is that, you know, when bikes have problems, you know, if your bike has a problem, you're going to post it to a forum. So when you see those forums that talk about KTM reliability, specifically these 890s, I think you hear about all of the ones that have problems, but you never hear about the ones that have had no problems. So I was flipping through the manual the other day, you know, refreshing my mind for the track day suspension settings, and I looked up, like, when do you adjust the valves in this thing? In my head, I had it at 10,000 kilometers, and it's actually the first oil change after the 600 kilometer oil change is at 10,000 kilometers. The valves aren't due for inspection until like 18,000 kilometers. I may do it sooner than that, and let's be honest, there may be some catastrophic failure too, who knows. But the thing is that, you know, time and time again, I'm on Facebook, I'm on a forum, someone's complaining about the leaky head gasket. Hasn't happened. knock wood. Someone's complaining about the leaky countershaft seal. Hasn't happened, knock wood. Someone's telling about a noisy valve train or a cam chain issue. And granted, KTM engines are notoriously noisy, but this doesn't sound any worse than any of the other ones I've heard. So maybe I just got lucky and got myself like a, you know, the Monday morning bike versus the Friday afternoon bike. But it's been absolutely bulletproof. There haven't been any problems. I may come back in a month or a year's time foaming at the mouth, angry at this thing. But all of the problems that everyone else has encountered, especially with the 2020-2021 bikes, I'm not seeing any of that here. And you know, I've done 3 track days. This last one particularly, like I was revving it out to redline. I was wringing its neck. But I think there's some other things that I do, just being a mechanic or mechanically sympathetic, that save myself some hassle. I clean it regularly, so I look for any issues. I change oil probably almost wastefully. I did happen to get that 60-liter drum of Liquimoli. I sold half of it, so about 30 liters, for the same price I paid for the 60 liters. So it's basically free oil, 20W50 full synthetic race oil. That's perfect for this thing. So we're at 8,000 kilometers. I changed the oil at 600 kilometers, and I think twice more. So it's getting some pretty quick oil interval changes. But I just changed the oil after this last track day. So earlier this week. Always use KTM filters, never the cheap ones. Pulled these 2 screens, crystal clear, like nothing on them. No little bits of metal, no little bit or steel, no little bits of aluminum, no gasket goo, no nothing. So maybe that's part of it. When I started up, I started up and I let it, you know, get 2 or 3 bars on the temperature gauge before I take off. Track day, you know, get up in the morning, get my cup of coffee, you know, try to wake up after sleeping in the car all night, and then, you know, fire the bike up and let it warm up to 4 bars at the track and then shut it down. I think there's some preventative work and just some, call it mechanical sympathy, that you can do that will let any engine run or last a bit longer, and maybe this one in particular. So anyway, not the most interesting video. All you do is hear me talking and waxing poetic about what a great bike this is, but it's been a great bike. So 1 year in, track mode set to 9. Unless you're pushing hard, the tires are cold, and you low side this bike, it's almost uncrashable. I think if you are gentle with it on warm up and treat it sympathetically, mechanically, it's going to last a lot longer. Maybe cut the oil change intervals in half. You know, yes, synthetic oil is expensive, but this doesn't even take 3 liters of it, and it's still cheaper than oil change. And if you haven't already done so, all I can encourage you to do is, if you're doing any sort of commuting or distance driving, get the cruise control. It's a life-changing intervention. And again, if you haven't done so, if you haven't bought the tech pack or a track pack for this bike, do it. I'm almost happy that I rode it for a year without it, because it's a whole nother bike all over again. It's absolutely stunning in terms of the technology and what these machines can do. And of course, if you've had modern bikes, you know all this, and you're probably chuckling to yourself that I'm just like a kid in the candy store. So yeah, aside from some of the mods that came after the last track day, I might find myself in Portland, Oregon in a little while, so I'm going to make a visit to EDR Performance, which is one of the known tuning shops for KTM 890Rs. They work with Andy DeBrino. I want to chat with him about a rapid bike module, and then getting rid of the catalytic converter and putting an Aero cat delete in there. I'm going to leave the muffler stock, because I want this relatively quiet. But again, the idea of filling in that dip around 45 to 5,500 RPM and cooling off the engine a bit and getting it to run not so lean and saving 4 pounds is a pretty exciting prospect. So anyway, like I said, just an update on how happy I am with this machine, and if you're still debating whether or not to buy one, I can't think of anything else that's comparable. Having not ridden any of them, but it's a pretty fantastic machine. So anyway, thanks for letting me talk about my awesome bike, and yeah, when those new parts get put on, I'll post some more updates. Like and subscribe.